Okay, magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat at of course, pangatlong Miyerkules sa buwan ng July 2021. Ito po ang inyong regular na kakwentuhan tuwing ganitong oras, tuwing Miyerkules, ang inyong mga kanasyon sa InkluNasyon. Nako, masaya po kaming lahat sapagkat unang-una ay successful ang NDPR Week ng ating sektor, at ito po ang kumbaga isa sa mga tinitingnang gawain ng lahat, halos karamihan ng may 10 milyong Pilipinong may kapansanan ay laging tinitingnan ng NDPR Week para bagang ito lang ang linggo sa buong taon ho. Pero sinasabi nga ho namin sa ating pamahalaan at sa ating stakeholders na ang taong may kapansanan ay buhay din ho after NDPR Week. Ibig sabihin, hindi lang po dapat ang mga activities ng gobyerno, ng stakeholders ay matatapos pagkatapos ng NDPR Week. Kasi kung makikita po ninyo, bagamat binabati ho natin ang National Council on Disability Affairs, in fairness kay Executive Director Eme Rojas, siksik na siksik. Kumbaga sabi ng El Shaddai siksik, liglig at umaapaw, pero wag naman pagsasabay-sabayin sapagkat hindi na maintindihan ng sektor kung paano hahatiin ang kanilang katawan. Iisa lang naman ho ang katawan ng tao. So siguro ay sa mga susunod na taon matututo ng NCDA. Bagamat palaman, padami ng padami. Ang nakakatuwa naman ho doon, lahat ng sektor ng ating pamahalaan ay talagang siksik, liglig ang kanilang mga activities sa report. Sana ganun din karami sa implementasyon. Pero bagamat kahit po anong sabihin namin, ay talaga po ang NDPR Week ay naging lundo ng isang pagkakataon para sa ating lahat para malaman ang ginagawa ng bawat isa ng gobyerno, ng stakeholders at ng sektor mismo. Kung ano-ano po ang iba't ibang mga gawain. Of course, nung Monday, naka-attend po tayo doon sa forum nila, kasama ang PhilHealth, kasama ang Department of Health. Uy, by the way, yung anong tawag dito, yung registry ng persons with disabilities sa DOH umabot na daw po ng 600,000. Marami na 'yon. Oo, dumadami na at may version 4. Version 4 na yung ginagamit na software. Ibig sabihin, nakakaroon naman ng progression. At talagang nakakatuwa naman po. At ang maganda rin po doon ay nagkaroon din po ng realization ang Department of Social Welfare and Development. Alam po naman ninyo na ang ating bansa, hindi ko po alam bakit ganoon mga kanasyon. Bakit ho gayon ang kahit po ang kailangan ng mga may kapansanan ay tungkol sa edukasyon, ituturo ka sa DSWD. Kahit ang kailangan mo'y kalusugan, ituturo ka rin sa DSWD. Para bagang lahat na lang, basta persons with disability, DSWD. Pero hindi naman po ganun dapat. At papatunayan po yan ngayon sapagkat ang pag-uusapan natin ngayong hapon, ang pagkikwentuhan natin, ay isang panukalang batas na pinangunahan ni Senator Win Gatchalian. Kaya win na win ang sektor ng may kapansanan ngayong hapon sapagkat nasa pre-BICAM na ang atin hong Inclusive Education Bill. Yun po. Masaya po kami sapagkat ang pinagpaguran ng INET Philippines, pinagpaguran ng Philippine Coalition on UNCRPD ay nasa pre-BICAM na. At marami tayong mga bagong kakampi. Bukod sa mga staff at teammates ni Senator Win, kakampi rin natin ng iba't ibang mga senador at congressman ngayon na nakatingin sa pre-BICAM para pagdating nila, pagpasok nila, pagkatapos ng SONA ni Digong, ay dire-diretso na po uli ang kanilang pagtatrabaho. At ang panalangin po ng InkluNasyon ay matapos po ito ng maayos sa BICAM, muling pagtibayin ng Senate at bigger house at pipirmahan na ni President Duterte in time for before the celebration of the International Day of Persons with Disabilities, di ba? Having said that, mga kanasyon, ay sa unang bahagi po, makakasama natin ngayong hapon ang nangunguna sa delegasyon po ng aming sektor o ng ating sektor sa pre-BICAM. Pero mamaya po, ang ating main menu sa ating kwentuhan ngayong hapon. In fact, nandito na po ang ating ang teammates po, ang kanyang teammates sa Senado, yung buong Committee on Education staff, kasama ho natin ngayon. First time natin at natutuwa po kami, tuwang-tuwa po kami talaga. We are ecstatic in joy, ika nga. Because yung pong ating Committee on Education, alam ba ho ninyo ang INET. Ang INET po ay isang grupo na ang pangunahing advocacy ay tungkol sa edukasyon ng mga kabataang Pilipino at kasali po dyan ang kabataang may kapansanan. So para ho ipakilala ang ating unang panelists na talaga naman pong nagbibigay ng spending her midnight oil para lang siguradong lahat ng sentimiento ng sektor ay marinig sa pre-BICAM. Ipapakilala po siya ni Miss Celia Garcia. Ma'am Celia, good afternoon.
Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Nais ko po sanang bigyan ng mixing introduction ng ating resource speaker na mag-update po sa atin kung ano nangyayari sa kanilang pre-BICAM working group na ginagawa ngayon sa Senado at lower house para po ma-reconcile ang dalawang bills on inclusive education. Ito po si Dr. Irma Coronel, isa pong kilalang leader at advocate para sa mga persons with disability. Dati po siyang presidente ng Philippine Council for Cheshire Homes for the Disabled. At ngayon po, at matagal na rin po siyang miyembro at vice-presidente sa pinakamatandang organisasyon ng disability sa Pilipinas, yung pong PFRD, Philippine Foundation for the Rehabilitation of the Disabled. At siya po ay isa sa aming founding members at moving spirit noong dating aming advisory council for the education of children and youth with disabilities na noon ay directly under sa Secretary of Education sa DepEd, Dr. Irma Coronel.
Thank you, Ma'am Celia. Doc Irma, good afternoon.
Magandang hapon po, Aaron, at lahat ng advocates and especially the legal staff of Senator Win Gatchalian.
Oo, ang sabi ni Doktora Celia Garcia, ikaw daw ay miyembro ng pinakamatandang organisasyon ng PFRD. Hindi naman ako naniniwala na ganun ka nakatanda, Doc Irma, di ba? Di ba? Sige, konting yaman ka, hindi naman ganon, di ba, Doc Irma? Kumusta po? Anong feeling na ngayon pinangungunahan mo itong isa ka sa mga players dito sa pre-BICAM ng ating inclusive education bill, ma'am? How do you feel?
Unang-una po ay ako ay nagulat.
Okay.
Kasi marami po kaming magkakasama na sumusulong dito sa batas na ito mula pa noong 2014 as a way of a background. Natagtag po ang Advisory Council for the Education of Learners with children and youth with disability way back nung tinatag po siya ni Brother Armin Luistro dahil kasi ay may mga ating elders noon na hindi mapakali. Bakit walang naririnig tungkol sa participation o programa para sa mga children and youth with disability sa K-12. Okay. So, nanguna po doon ang ating pinakamamahal at wala na siya sa ating kasama ngayon, si Kanoli Agkawili. At siya po ang nagsulong na meet natin si Brother Armin para malaman niya na nandito tayo. Ano bang plano ng DepEd? So, nag-umpisa po yun ng ganyan. There were 7 organizations. Kasama po si Celia Garcia, kasama din doon ang Resources for the Blind, kasama rin ang si Jean Gonzalez, At ilan pa pong 7 po kami, no? So, ang unang meeting agad-agad, sabi ni Brother Armin ay gagawa tayo ng council. First
Mhm.
time po in the
Mhm.
history
Yeah.
that papasok tayo sa DepEd by way of an executive order na agad-agad pinirmahan niya that the council will help DepEd formulate the strategic plan
Strategic plan. Oo.
for roadmap
Yeah.
for children and youth with disability. Sa kabutihang palad po ay kumatok kami sa AIM. Wala pa kaming pera.
Mhm. Mhm.
Ngunit si Dean Mike Cruz,
Oh,
na
kababayan ko 'yon.
kilala
Yeah.
kilala din po namin way back. Ang iba
Mm.
sa amin kilala namin siya.
Mm.
Hindi siya nag-atubiling tumulong kahit na sinabi namin sa kanya wala kaming pera. Talagang wala po kaming pera. At sabi niya hindi bale. Tutulungan namin kayo. So, ang isip namin was to have a strategic plan only for 3 days.
Okay.
Yung 3 days, yung pang 3 days na yun, wala pa rin kaming pera. Tapos sabi niya, hindi, gawin natin comprehensive. We will make a plan that will be, we will have multi-stakeholders that we will consult.
Okay.
So, hindi 3 araw yon, no?
Mm.
So, nung we went to Brother Armin, gumawa sila ng proposal in coordination with us.
Mm.
Lumapit kami kay Brother Armin. Ito na yung proposal. And Brother Armin readily approved the budget. So nagkapera po kami. Pero in gratitude to Mike Cruz and AIM, they bankrolled the whole strategic plan activity for 1 year. Na wala po silang pera na natatanggap. Nabayaran lang po sila at the end of the project ng DepEd. So sila lahat ang gumasta for 1 year. Kaya ubos pong nagpasalamat ng sektor.
Yeah, but Doc Irma, let's face it, bago kayo dumating, hindi naman papayag yung DepEd na wala silang ginagawa sa SPED, di ba?
Meron.
I mean, oo. Pero ibig ko sabihin nga, papaano niyo nakumbinse na we need to have some re-strategies, mag-re-strategize, kaya parang gano'n, to put it simply, na yung mga dating ginagawa, medyo babaguhin ng konti. Paano nyo nakumbinsi ang DepEd at doon sa inyong plano na ito ba inadapt ba ng DepEd, Doc Irma?
Well, in fairness, we were given the audience by way of presenting it to the executive committee.
Okay.
The executive committee is composed of the secretary, undersecretary, assistant secretary. So we were given the chance to present and defend the proposal because it was really a roadmap, no?
Okay.
Kung anong kailangan ng children and youth with disability, kung anong kailangan ng mga teachers, ng mga parents, anong gamit ang kailangan, anong infrastructure ang kailangan, tapos pati ang budget. On a 5-year period na project ng budget because si Mike Cruz was a former undersecretary of the budget for
right.
So with that and with the support of Brother Armin, unti-unti nabigay nila, unti-unti. Hindi na nabigay lahat ng hinihingi natin, no? That's why during the executive committee nung matatapos na kami mag-present, Undersecretary Umali actually gave us the information na merong bill creating SPED Center, approved na ang 3rd reading. Kaka-approve lang ng 3rd reading. And from then on...
Teka muna, saan daw? Sa lower house o sa Senate?
Lower house.
Hindi pa approve yun. Sige.
Hindi, sa lower house. Approved sa lower house, no?
Okay.
On 3rd reading. Approved sa lower
house.
So we took that lead. After that, we were led na kay Senator Pia Cayetano.
Okay.
Ang legal staff niya helped us. But the senator started initiating the bill. There were several versions of the SPED bill. Madami na. Even
that
before.
Was in 2014, 2015,
Yes.
along that timeline.
Yes. Even
Oo.
early, dami nang nag-submit na congressman, senators ng SPED bill, pero hindi siya
SPED pa
na-approve.
rin, ha? SPED pa rin, di ba?
SPED pa rin. Ang
SPED pa
ipin
rin. Oo.
ng advisory council is that inclusive education.
Okay.
But inclusive education as a policy was introduced by Secretary Just
Lapos.
Lapus way back. Kaya lang,
Mm.
hindi pa siya masyadong na-enforce, no? So we took that to you also, plus I give credit to Celia and Bong Garcia for really pushing that kailangan mag-transition na tayo into inclusive education. It is a policy of the DepEd and now it should be fully enforced. It's time to fully enforce it. And let's help DepEd do that. So with
All
this
right.
bill, we hope that the bill will, first of all, support inclusive education.
Oh.
And then, itong bill na ito, nakalagay, we are creating support services by way of the Inclusive Learning Resource Center in support of inclusive education.
Very quickly, Doc Coronel, what are at least 3 salient features of your recommendations?
For the bill? Okay.
No, yung kay Secretary Luistro before. Yung ginawa nyo kay Mike Luz. Can you please give us at least three salient features of those recommendations na ginawa po ninyo?
First of all, we advocated that instead of SPED centers, there should be inclusive learning resource centers, no?
Okay.
So expanded na siya with a strong policy on inclusive education. Meaning lahat ng bata, no one should be left behind, no? But ang batang may kapansanan, walang kapansanan, pwedeng umupo sa classroom, magkatabi yan, pwede, no? Kaya lang, may mga bata na kailangan ng further intervention, further enhancement in terms of education. Doon papasok ang Inclusive Learning Resource Center. That's number 2.
Okay, number 2.
We advocated training of teachers, incoming and those in the service already, even administrators.
Okay.
And then, number 3, very important that the DepEd, through the assistance of other departments, have provide the assistive devices, learning materials, and multidisciplinary specialists to assist the center in order to provide the services on a full range basis. Yun
ang at least 3 salient features, no, na mukhang kaya pala iba ang glow mo ngayon because mukhang ito rin yung direksyon ng bill na at least yung tinatakbo ngayon ng deliberation, ano. Of course, bago tayo mapagalitan ni Attorney Kat, bawal kasi dahil of course ito po ay para hindi naman po mabalaho, di ba? Hindi so as not to cause any further trouble, ano, because yung pre-BICAM po kasi tapos na ho yung amendments diyan, wala nang mga dagdag. Kung ano po yung nandyan, i-refine na lang yan para in conformity with the legal walang infirmities, ano. So talagang kailangan po yung mga technical experts tulad ni Doc Irma na lang ang nag-uusap. Kaya I won't ask you about the details of that pre-BICAM kasi that is for now, hindi rin po sikretohon tawag dyan, kundi they're just fine-tuning things, ha? Hindi po, wala hong itinatago yan, kundi talagang inaayos nila in a way na magiging angkop lahat para wala pong ikangay, walang sabit, to, sa simple terms. Okay. Ngayon po, Doc Irma, sa anong resistance ang nakuha ninyo kung meron dyan sa DepEd? Meron po ba o nagko-cooperate naman sila?
Wala naman. I'm really happy to inform our fellow advocates, lalo na yung mga parents, no, na ang DepEd has been very supportive to the bill, no. They
Hindi,
have provided
let's
for
not talk about yun po pag-i-introduce nyo ng ng inyong advocacy before, no? Meron kasing ilan na lang naman sa DepEd na, oo, sige, oo, support, tapos pagkatapos noon parang pagkatalikod, hindi naman support, parang ganyan. Hindi nyo naman naranasan po yun, Doc
ngayon,
Coronel. Wala naman gano'n, ha?
ngayon sa BICAM, hindi naman.
Hindi.
Ang sabi mo nga, no, inaayos na lang, no,
I'm not
fine-tune.
talking about, I'm sorry, ma'am, but I'm not talking about the BICAM, but when you presented that to DepEd family, please, I don't want to put you in a bad spot na usapan walang pulong doon sa BICAM, walang ganon. But I'm referring po doon nung unang present po ninyo ito sa kanila sa DepEd family. Sabi niyo nga there were recommendations na binigay po ninyo. Ano ho ang naging reaction po nila, Doc Coronel?
First of all, ang tandang-tanda namin is that, ang sabi sa amin is that they will study it. Of course, that's the usual reaction naman, di ba?
Ako naman, that's the familiar line. Hindi, joke lang.
Usual reaction yun na pag-aralan natin. Tapos, unti-unti titingnan natin kung ano yung pwede at ano yung hindi pwede. So, ang nangyari over the years, nag-intay kami kung unti-unti na naibibigay.
Okay.
Tapos, yung pag hindi na ibibigay, ano pa rin kami? We will try to push until we have exerted as much effort that we can to convince them that this is the thing that to do. So,
yeah, but of
fairly,
course, yes,
may
please,
mga
please.
bagay na mga bagay na naibigay, may mga bagay na hindi naibigay. Mas marami hindi naibigay.
Okay. Siyempre naman. At saka, kumbaga sabi nga ng matatanda, pag may tiyaga, may nilaga. And kung hindi man DepEd ang naglaga, may maglalagang iba, no? Doc Irma, bago matapos yung segment natin with you, bakit nagtutuloy-tuloy ka ng advocacy? Doktor ka na nga. You're on your no? Kumbaga, you have reached your goals, siguro, di ba? Why are you keep on persisting this advocacy?
Unang-una, I'm a person with disability.
Okay.
Siguro, maswerte nga ako, sabi ng mga doktor, that late ka na nung naging person with disability ka. Which is true, and I'm very happy about that. But then I also realized nung sa pakikisalamuha, lalo na to the late Sister Valeriana Bartz ng Tahanang Walang Hagdanan at saka ng Philippine Council of CSR Homes for the Disabled, which she founded. Kasama kami doon ni Noli at Kawili. Nakita ko kung gaano kahirap ang buhay ng bata, pati matanda na may disability. At nung namulat ako, sabi ko sa sarili ko, hindi ko pwedeng pabayaan na walang gawin. Binigyan siguro ako ng tsansa ng Diyos na makasalimuha, lalo na si Sister Valeriana Bartz. At makakita talaga kung gaano kahirap ang buhay ng persons with disability. Kaya kailangan responsibilidad natin na gawin ang ating makakaya para tulungan ng iba.
Dito sa engagement ninyo sa opisina ni Senator Gatchalian, anong most rewarding sa iyo?
The most rewarding is, of course, when we have an open when I get the feeling that people are listening.
Okay.
What we need may not be granted, all of it.
Okay.
Na-realize ko na yan, no? Hindi pwedeng lahat ng gusto mo maibibigay. Pag naibigay yung ibang gusto mo, magpasalamat ka. Pagkatapos doon, ano pa rin? Trabaho pa rin. Sige pa. Hindi yan matatapos. Kasi hindi natatapos ang mga nagkakaroon ng disability sa ating mundo. Kaya tuloy-tuloy pa rin.
So ang sinasabi mo, the team of Senator Gatchalian and from the lower house, they listen to you,
Yes.
Of course, you've learned from each other. Anong greatest learning mo naman? Anong take away mo dito sa engagement mo rito sa kanila?
Unang-una, kailangan ng pasensya.
Sino?
Kailangan
Sila o
pasensya.
kayo?
Kailangan mo rin, kailangan mo
Oo.
lawakin ang pangunawa mo.
Okay.
Lahat ng tao gustong gumawa ng trabaho nila, no?
Okay.
And there are limitations. And there are also opportunities. All you have to do is try to look for the middle ground, perhaps, in order to agree with one another. And strongly believe, that all parties are concerned with your cause. And they are all with you in trying to reach what we are looking for.
Okay, very beautiful. Very well said, Doc Irma Coronel. Huwag ka po nang aalis, ha? Meron lang tayong video. Pero mukhang mamaya, alam ko kasama ka rin naman namin if, pagdating ni Senator Gatchalian. Sana kasama na natin siya after the video. But in the meantime, uminom ka muna ng tubig, ma'am. As always, very fruitful 30 minutes with you. Thank you, Doc Irma. At narito po muna ang video presentation ni JM. JM, please.
Thank you.
Instituting services for learners with disabilities in support of Inclusive Education Act, Senate Bill number 1907. Protect and promote the right of all citizens to quality education at all levels. Recognize, protect, and promote the rights of learners with disabilities to education based on equal opportunity. Make education compulsory and accessible for every learner with disability. Recognize the vital role of learners with disabilities in society. Include their needs as an integral part of national development strategies, guarantee social protection, and facilitate active participation. Instituting services for learners with disabilities in support of Inclusive Education Act, Senate Bill number 1907.
Okay na ba, JM? Can you hear me, JM?
Yes po.
All right, very good. So, yun po ang munting primer dyan sa pagkikwentuhan natin ngayon. Nandiyan na ba si Senator Gatchalian? Direct Mitch?
Yes, DJ Ron.
He's here na?
Senator, yes.
Oh, nice. Very good. So, without further ado, at nako, alam ko pong busy ang ating panauhin ngayon, but allow me to thank you, sir, for this afternoon's show. Now, kinumpleto po ninyo ang forum namin this afternoon. And to properly introduce ang ating panauhin po para talagang win na tayong lahat. Narito po ang lead convener ng Philippine Coalition on UNCRPD, Doc June Bernardino. Doc June, go.
Magandang araw ho sa lahat. So, June Bernardino, lead convener ng Philippine Coalition on the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities at Executive Director ng Life Haven Center for Independent Living. So, karangalan kong pakilala, kilala naman ho lahat, pero tutuloy pa rin ho natin. Okay, de-kalidad na edukasyon ang daan tungo sa magandang kinabukasan. Walang maiiwan. Ito ang pangunahing prinsipyo sinusulong ng ating Senator Win Gatchalian bilang chairperson ng Senate Committee on Basic Education, Arts and Culture. Bilang champion sa edukasyon ng mga sektor na lagi na isasandabi at na pag-iiwanan, sinulong niya ang mga batas para makamit ang kanila o aming karapatan sa edukasyon gaya ng Free Higher Education Act o libreng matrikula sa mga state and local universities and colleges sa bansa at ang Alternative Learning System Act o pagbibigay ng pangalawang pagkakataon sa sino mang nangangarap na makapagtapos ng pag-aaral kasama ang mga out-of-school youth, indigenous people at persons with disabilities. Pangunahin ho niyan tinaguhit sa Senado ang pagpapasa sa Senate Bill 1907 o Instituting Services in Support of Inclusive Education for Learners with Disabilities. So karangalan kong pakibigay sa inyo, karangalan ko rin no kasi kasama ko to sa Valenzuela. Isa rin ho akong Valenzuelenyo. Ang ating buting Senador, Win Gatchalian. Salamat po.
Senator,
host.
good afternoon.
Thank you June sa napakagandang pagpapakilala. Maraming salamat sa pag-imbita sa akin dito sa ating 43rd National Disability Prevention and Rehabilitation Week.
Opo, at masaya po kami, Senador, at kasama po namin kayo. At unang-una po ay maraming salamat po sa mga batas na inuugit ninyo para sa sektor po ng may kapansanan. Opo, sir, kumusta po ang engagement nyo sa sektor? Balita ko, ito ho ang isa sa bill na pinakamahabang deliberation. Senator Gatchalian, sir.
Opo, ito po ay talagang kumbaga binalangkas namin kasama ang pagod, pawis, dugo at pagmamahal. Dahil hindi lang ito para sa akin simpleng batas na dumaan lang at isinabatas, kung hindi ito ay produkto po ng maraming boses ng iba't ibang sektor ng may kapansanan. Kaya hindi ito produkto ng Senado, kundi produkto po ito ng sektor.
Talagang pinatunayan po ninyo sa bill na ito na it takes a village to rear a child. Anong mga sir? Mahirap po ba? Ano ho ang mga realizations ninyo nang nakipagtrabaho kayo sa sektor?
Ronel, kung pahintulutin mo, meron akong short presentation.
Ay, sige po, please, sir, please.
Para nag-prepare ako ng isang PowerPoint para ma-visualize or marinig ng ating mga kasama kung ano po yung pinagdaanan nitong bill na ito.
Please go ahead, Senator.
Yes. Bago ako magpatuloy, Ronel, batiin ko lang of course si Ma'am Flora Arellano at si Ma'am Mitzi Chan. Good to see si Ma'am Mitzi dahil na-miss namin siya sa mga hearings namin. Very active siya.
Hello po, Senator Win.
Hello, Mitzi. Good to see you. And of course, binabati ko lahat po ng mga leaders, iba't ibang leaders and president ng iba't ibang grupo na nandito po. So, binabati ko po kayo lahat. So, meron po akong isang short PowerPoint. Pakita ko lang, Ronel.
Yes, sir.
Yan. So again, thank you very much for inviting me to this very important and timely event. And alam niyo bago nating pinag-usapan itong batas na ito, meron din po akong sariling kwento tungkol sa ganitong mga pangyayari na may kaugnayan sa ganitong batas. Meron din po akong pamangkin na merong autism at dati nag-aaral siya sa Makati. At nung lumipat sila sa Pasig, napilitan ng parents niya na ilipat siya sa Pasig para mas malapit. Alam naman sa atin, in traffic, ang hirap sa bata kung magigising ng alas 5 tapos alas 8, napakahirap po. So lumipat sila ng Pasig at naghanap sila ng eskwelahan around the Pasig area. At yung parents nila pumunta sila sa 3 eskwelahan. At to my surprise, maraming mga eskwelahan hindi tinanggap yung pamangkin ko na mayroong autism. And mayroong isang eskwelahan na gustong-gusto ng parents niya. At ang sagot ng eskwelahan, pasensya na po pero hindi kami ready. No, we're not ready, we're not equipped, we don't have the capability to teach your daughter who has autism. So napakasakit yun para sa isang magulang. No?
Opo naman.
In fact, dahil wala silang mahanap na eskwelahan, nag-homeschooling yung aking pamangkin. Which is okay rin naman, no? Dahil meron silang eskwelahan na pinuntahan na nag-specialize sa homeschooling. But just imagine, itong kapatid ko may kaya, handa silang magbayad ng tuition fee, meron silang sariling sasakyan, driver, pero kahit ganoon, hirap pa rin sila na hirap, no? Hirap na hirap sila makahanap ng eskwelahan. At doon sa eskwelahan na gusto nilang mapasukan, hindi naman sila tinanggap dahil yung eskwelahan raw ay hindi ready. So yung burden of readiness napunta sa bata, hindi sa
Correct. Hindi sa eskwelahan.
hindi sa eskwelahan. So
Mm.
kaya nga nung pinag-uusapan namin itong batas na ito, nagkaroon ako ng reflection. No? Paano pa yung mga kababayan natin na walang kakayahan at umaasa lang sa ating pamahalaan para mabigyan ng magandang edukasyon yung kanilang anak na may kapansanan.
Opo.
So kaya ho ito ay itinulak ko namin at nagkaroon kami ng dalawang public hearings at sana Ronel nakikita mo ito but i-describe ko na lang. Itong public hearing jam-packed dito, punong-puno. At kinonduct namin ito noong January 23 nung wala pang pandemic. Kaya makikita natin all the groups in-invite natin and si Senator Binay, Senator Pimentel, Senator Tolentino were all there to join the hearing. At biglang sa kasamaang palad tumama ho ang pandemya. Kaya for the first time, ginawa ho namin ng mga technical working groups via online. At wala akong experience to conduct a technical working group via online. Kaya naging challenge rin to. But sabi ko, hindi naman natin pwedeng hintayin na matapos yung pandemya at saka tayo magkaroon ng technical working group because hindi natin alam kung kailan matatapos yung pandemya. No? And so tinuloy ho natin and we had 10 technical working groups. And just
yun ho ba'y karaniwan ba 10 technical working groups?
Hindi, Ronel. Magandang tanong yan. Hindi karaniwan yan.
Yes, sir.
Yan, typically, ang technical working group, 2 lang.
Oo nga.
At saka ang technical working group, normally, staff ang nagpapatakbo. Pero dito kasi, nakita ko yung kahalagan nitong batas na ito. Kaya ako mismo ang nag-preside at umupo para makinig at matuto. Importante kasi sa akin na papakinggan yung boses at yung advice, yung suggestion ng ating mga experts. At natutuwa po ako dahil maraming experts po ang sumali at kaya umabot ng 10 technical working groups dahil yung mga experts natin, napaka-passionate nila. Talagang gusto nilang maging perfect itong batas na ito. At gusto ko rin naman maging perfect para makatulong. So nagpapasalamat po ako sa INET Philippines dahil isa sila sa maraming resource persons na nag-participate dun sa technical working group. Papasalamat po ako kay Ma'am Flora at kay Mitzi for participating in their group. Marami silang experts who participated because that really enriched the law and made the law holistic by identifying a lot of the details that we need to make it more pronounced.
And if I may share, as a senator, one of the reasons why InkluNasyon was born is because of INET's advocacy as they partnered with the Philippine Coalition on UNCRPD dito ho sa inclusive bill. Kaya natutuwa po kami, 1 year ang InkluNasyon, ito na, nasa pre-BICAM na kayo, Senador.
Correct. At for all intents and purposes, magiging batas to, Ronel.
Salamat po.
In BICAM is just para linisin lang yung mga dapat pang linisin. Pero for all intents and purposes, kumbaga 98% batas na ito.
Maraming salamat po.
Ministerial na lang yung ginagawa ng BICAM, pre-BICAM and BICAM. So once again, I thank INET for participating and of course all the resource persons and the different groups who participated in the technical working group. It took us 10. However, those 10 technical working groups were all worth it because we managed to disaggregate, to detail all the intricacies that we need to detail. So,
tama ba sir yung perspective? How fulfilling was the experience? Or how boring? Ano ba? Boring ba? Fulfilling ba yung experience, Senator?
Sa akin, Ronel, it's very fulfilling. Because marami ako natutunan personally. As much as I want to help my niece, but you need to understand the whole dynamics and the challenges that our learners with disabilities face. And we need to understand also how we can help them. Because hindi lang tayo pwedeng gawa ng batas, as bahala na si DepEd para mag-implement. Kailangan masigurado natin na yung batas ay pwedeng ma-implement at yung batas ay sumasagot sa kanilang mga pangangailangan. So,
Senador, if I may, Senador, marami akong saludo ngayon sa iyo ngayong hapon. Allow me to give the privilege, we have the privilege of saluting you first Dahil hindi po ninyo maintain yung tawag sa aming special children, because we are not special children. We are learners with disabilities. Lagi ko pong sinasabi, Senador, yung special na yan, sa halo-halo lang yan at sa pizza, pero never use it to characterize a person. Kasi that in itself is very discriminating po. Tawagin kang special child, number one. Number two, sasabihin nila special daw po yung special children daw po ito. Bakit walang classroom? Bakit walang learning materials? Pagka-graduate, wala naman trabaho. Tatawagin yung special, di Consuelo di Bobo, Senador. But sa bill po ninyo, sir, hindi kayo pumayag na special children, learners with disabilities, and that is the right appropriate term and call for us, sir. Thank you very much po. My first salute to you.
Colonel, we went beyond that, no? Itong bill, tinanggal na namin yung term na SPED teacher.
Very good, sir.
The law removed the term SPED teacher. They're now called special needs teacher. And the law also removed, well, not the law, no, but in college, wala na rin SPED course. It's special needs education. So, in-align lang natin to at minandate natin ngayon ang DepEd na wag na kayong gagamit ng special education, kundi special needs education.
And for your information, sir, dito po sa huling evaluation na kinonduct nila, apologetic po yung mga authorities sa DepEd. Sorry, talaga nasanay lang kami sa special
Yes.
Ang ganda.
It's not their fault, Ronella.
Of course, Senator, of course.
No? It's really, we need to modernize and globalize our concepts. And this law, itong Senate Bill number 1907, will modernize and globalize. It will align the concepts of our inclusive education to the UN CRPD. So align with this law, compliant and aligned na tayo with UN CRPD. So
very good
if you allow, I'll discuss yung concepts ng bill.
Sige po, please. No? At dami ko tanong, pasensya na kayo.
Wala. Maganda yun. I like it.
Go ahead, Senator.
At least we have some interaction. So, so the bill seeks to make early and basic education accessible to all learners with disabilities. So, wala na tayong special education. It's basic education na for all. And the law will now augment services. Importante po yung services. No, dahil may special needs, so dapat may services na katumbas po yan. And we will eliminate all the barriers. No? For example, yung mga physical barriers. For example, kung meron kang kapansanan sa paglalakad, no, dapat mabigyan ng tamang physical support, no, doon sa mga learners na meron tayong kapansanan sa paglalakad. So
kumbaga yung built environment na tawag po nila, sir.
So, my physical disability, the law will now address those physical disability with physical support mechanisms.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the next naman,
sir, before you leave that point, may I just inform you, sir? Of course, walang may kasalanan, sabi nyo nga, but the reality po right now on the ground is wala hong accessible, compliant ang DepEd schools, na lalo na yung mga bagong pinagawa. Malungkot po kami. Yung luma, wala ho. Itong bago, sir, hindi pa rin compliant. That, again, sabi nyo nga, nobody's fault dyan, but I'm just informing you about that, what we have learned from the ground. Go ahead, Senator.
We will address that with this law.
Yes po.
With this law.
Yes po, Senator.
Ronel, I will discuss the features of the law, no? Pero hindi ko na, I will not go in detail because of lack of time, but I will just discuss few concepts, no? Para our audience will get a flavor of what this law is all about. So number one is wala ng public and private school na pwedeng maghindi sa mga learners with disabilities.
Very good.
It's now the school's responsibility to equip themselves and to capacitate themselves. So the school cannot say no because they're not equipped. No, they cannot turn away students anymore because the burden now is on the school to capacitate themselves. Kaya dito sa first feature on Section 5, nakasaad, no learner with disability shall be denied admission and inclusion in any public or private school. So, and this is again in line with our concept of inclusive education for all.
Yeah.
And let's get ready. Let the school be responsible for its readiness. So number 2, we will now build inclusive learning resource centers nationwide. No?
Yun.
Kasalukuyan ang tawag dito SPED Center. So tinanggal na namin yung word SPED, tawag na natin ILRC. No? In fact, papakita ko sa Valenzuela, to be honest about it, guilty rin kami for using SPED. No? Kasi nga sabi mo nga, Ronel, nasanay din tao eh. No, papalitan na namin yan to ILRC. So, meron ng mga ILRC all over the nation, no, na ipapatuyo ng gobyerno. And then, we will institutionalize the child file system. Ngayon kasi hindi proactive yung paghahanap ng mga batang may kapansanan o learners with disabilities. So with this law, proactive na. No, hindi na natin iintayin sila pumasok pa sa eskwelahan para makita sila. Dapat ang gobyerno lumalabas para mahanap sila through the child find system.
Yes, sir.
And another feature, the individualized education plans. Alam natin, napakahalaga ito. Ngayon kasi nagiging optional o hindi ginagawa on a regular basis. So by law, the IEP will be crafted by experts. And the IEP will be the basis on how to approach the special needs of our learners with disabilities.
Kakagaling ko lang sir sa Australia, and that's the way they do it, no? Sa Amerika ganun din, no? So ngayon pwede ko na sabihin sa Pilipinas din, di ba? And thank you very much, Senator.
And this suggestion, Ronel, came from you, from the stakeholders. Sinabi nila, gawin natin batas to para kung hindi ginawa to, of course, lalabag ka sa batas. No? So now the IEP is a legal document as prescribed by this law. Then the law will also call for the hiring of a multidisciplinary team. So maraming mga experts and professionals will be hired by the ILRC. So in the next 5 years, we will build up the capability and experts that we need in the ILRC. And then another feature will be the maintenance of a learner information system. Ngayon kasi meron ng information, LIS, no? Learner information ng DepEd. Pero ikakabit natin dito yung learners with disabilities para madala yung kanilang IEP kahit saan sila pumunta. At malaman natin kung ano ang estado nila sa buhay, ano yung mga pangangailangan nila.
Yung progress ng kanilang learnings.
Correct. Kahit lumipat sila sa ibang city o ibang LGU, nasa computer na lahat yung kanilang mga pangangailangan.
Very good.
And then we will also craft a multi-year roadmap. In the next 5 years, ang target natin, ma-build yung mga professionals na kailangan natin, ma-build yung mga disciplines na pangangailangan natin. And in the next 5 years, yung mga pangangailangan para masuportahan yung ating learners with disability, pupondohan mo yan.
Sir, tama ho ba yung pagkakaintindi ko? Correct me if I'm wrong, Senador. Yung malaki po ang magagawa dito ng LSBs, yung local school board.
Yes.
Po. Yes. Kasi ngayon po, kung mapapansinin nyo, ewan ko sa Valenzuela, but in parang almost all places in the Philippines, pansinin po ninyo yung mga project ng school boards, lahat, puro infrastructure, no?
Yes.
Walang masyado rito sa mga ganitong initiatives na ito mga kailangan po ng learners natin, not necessarily. Ngayon, through this law siguro po ay magkakaroon na ng ganitong channeling of allocations po.
Authorization ng tawag.
Authorization.
Authorize na natin yung local school board to use their special education fund.
Very
so another feature of the law is we will create a advisory council for education of learners with disabilities. So meron ng advisory that will advise the Secretary of Education, and the advisory council will be composed of members of the persons with disability community. So they will be advising the Secretary on best practices, on the different policies. Another feature, ito importante ito, mandatory compliance. No, in 5 years, dapat mag-comply lahat ng private and public school. In public school, actually, walang problema eh. It's a private school that actually they say, no, not ready and not capable. So we're giving them 5 years to get the necessary expert, to build the necessary capability to reduce the barriers for our learners with disabilities. So, Ronel, gusto ko lang i-discuss kung ano yung ginagawa namin sa Valenzuela. Kanina, na-discuss ko, yun po yung mga features ng mga bill. No? Marami pang features yan, but I won't discuss that because of lack of time. But I encourage you
Yeah,
to
before
read
we leave the sir, before we leave the subject, if I may also input again, reality po on the ground. Sa ngayon po, at least dito sa public school sa probinsya po, because we're in touch with our members in the provinces, overloaded ho ang mga tawag nyo SPED teachers o special needs teachers. Overloaded. Meron po kami, for example, dito sa isang klase sa Padre Garcia, Batangas, meron po silang 68. Halo-halo po yung disability noon sa isang klase, sir. So medyo sana, I know kasi may 5 years transitory adjustment.
Yes.
Ano? So sana po may ayos po talaga ito at matutukan po, and of course, as always, katulong po ninyo yung sector dito, Senator.
Yung ating roadmap, no, that will now spell out all of the requirements that we need to roll out in the next 5 years. And that roadmap will be crafted by the Advisory Council, of course, together with government.
Yes po.
So,
At teka muna, sir, sorry, bago maikli lang, paano po kung sabihin ng secretary, advisory lang naman kayo hindi naman, parang kumbaga, gaano po kadiin dapat ang pagtingin ng sekretaryo o ng DepEd secretary sa advice? Kasi advice lang naman, advice nga lang. Pwedeng sundin, pwedeng hindi. Paano po ba yun, sir?
Well, the intent of the law is for the secretary to listen and to...
Opo. Pasensya na, cynical yata ako ngayon.
Of course, advisory yun, Ronel. But the intent of the law is for the Advisory Council to play a role in policy. Kaya nga ginawa sila So that's why that's the intent of the law. So,
at saka sir, mukhang ang isa pa ho doon, meron kayong ginawang maganda po. Yung tawag dito, yung Oversight Committee ng Congress, baka doon po medyo mas titibay yung Advisory Council. Ano ho?
Correct.
Thank you, Senator.
Yes, Ronel, thank you. For ito sa picture, no, I'm guilty. Ang tawag namin sa Valenzuela Special Education Center.
Di ba mababago yan? May 5 years pa tayo, sir. Go ahead.
Yes. Ito mababago, ito magiging
mababago lahat po yan, sir.
Inclusive Learning Resource Center. Mababago siya. No? So, in fact, ang teacher ngayon, hindi na SPED, kundi SNED, Special Needs Education Teacher. No? By law, mangyayari mo yan. So, just to share with you, ang aming tawag ko na, no, ILRC, itong Valenzuela Special Education Center /ILRC, katabi po ito ng isang school ho namin. Ito yung Malinta Elementary School. So, ang aming procedure, the Valenzuela SPED Center provides all the allied services, the multidisciplinary professionals, lahat ng mga doktor, lahat ng mga therapists nandyan. Ginagawa lahat ng mga therapy at mga special services or special needs services for our learners with disabilities. And then nag-aaral sila, dinadala namin sa Malinta Elementary School para kasama lahat ng kanilang mga kaklase. So hindi natin hiniwalay na nag-aaral ho sila sa Special Education Center. They're actually studying in Malinta Elementary School, but those who need additional support through our SPED Center, doon ho sila pumupunta. So ganyan yung concept namin. If you look at the map, magkatabi po yung school.
Very good.
Just to show you some pictures, ito po yung occupational therapy po para sa mga bata. Ito po yung physical therapy room para rin sa mga bata natin. And we put a lot of emphasis on lifelong learning. No? So we want our learners with disabilities to be independent. So gumawa kami ng computer room for them to learn coding or other digital applications. And meron tayong resource room for their additional academic needs. So,
very good.
Ito yung picture lang, a student who's learning how to cook. Ito yung pinaka-popular na course namin doon to learn how to cook so they can help their parents. Occasionally, meron kaming mga photography classes. Those who are artistically inclined or who wants to learn photography, we actually have consultants who teach our learners with disability photography. And then this is a picture about sign language and other therapy that we provide in our center. And ito, another picture of the physical therapy room. So all of these services are provided, and we have different experts from child psychologists to occupational therapists, to physical therapists, to pediatric experts. Lahat to andun po sa center. So they can just go to the center every Saturday or depende sa IEP nila, and then they go to class in Malinta for their basic education requirements.
Senator,
So,
salute. Senator, salute number 3, ha? Ito, panukalang batas pa lang, you've showed it that it's doable in your own area. So very good, and thank you very much, Senator. Pero and before malimutan ko po, sir, yun hong sa batas ninyo, lagi pong sa visually impaired, sa blind and visually impaired po, braille lang po yung nababanggit. Pwede ho bang dagdagan ng isang kudlit lang na audio and braille? Sana po, no? Kasi ang bulag po kasi ay both ginagamit po niya ang audio at saka braille materials po. And
well,
other
consider
assistive
that.
gadgets. Please po, please.
Yeah.
And then ngayon, ito po yung aking parang clarification pa uli. Of course Valenzuela is should be recognized, and sabi ko nga po, salute number 3, no, because pinakita niyo example na doable yung batas at hindi lang sa papel. You are doing it in practice already. Pero sir, meron ho bang provision ang batas para po halimbawa po kaming nasa rural area na gusto namin kahit kalahati man laang niyan ay ma-enjoy din po nung aming mga nasa rural areas, Senador po?
Yeah, itong batas natin, Ronel, we didn't make a distinction between urban or
And rural po.
rural areas.
Opo,
The application is uniform to all the different LGs regardless of their standing or their demographics.
Opo, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, so meron pong kumbaga sabi niyo nga kanina, the law authorizes the LSB, the local school board, to maximize the local the SEF funds for this purpose.
Yes. So let me end my presentation with a quote from Professor Carl Kohn, and he's an expert in inclusive education in America. And this quote, I really like this quote when I was doing my research, caught my attention. He's from the California Collaborative for Education Excellence. And he said, it's important to realize that special education students are first and foremost general education students. Correct. So there's no distinction between general education and special education. Lahat ay basic education. That's why in the law, we made it mandatory, and there's only one curriculum, which is the basic education curriculum, and there's only one program, which is the basic education program, to be given to all students, regardless of their stature or their condition or their race or religion. Lahat applicable. What the law will provide is additional support for our learners with disabilities. So ito po yung ating inclusive education law. This is actually one of the first in Southeast Asia, and we're very proud because we're now attuned to the UNCRPD. So thank you, Ronel, and thank you to everyone.
Kaya naman po, win na win talaga kaming lahat ngayong hapon, Senator Gatchalian, dahil kung ano po yung pangarap namin now will be a reality through your law. Pero yes, and hopefully magtagal pa kayo dyan ng 100 taon para mas marami pang pro persons with disabilities. Hindi po, wala akong biro yan, sir. Kaya kung minsan nga sabi namin siguro nga kailangan masama. But again, we are hoping that more champions like you will come out in Congress, in the executive department, para po naman talagang maging equal na. Kasi ako po, sir, I'm your promoter now for UNSCAP, for making the rights real for persons with disabilities. Hanggang 2022 ako. Kaya ngayon meron ako may pagmamalaki na nakakita kami ng champion kay Senator Win Gatchalian sa Senado dito po sa inyong inclusive education law na ito, Senator Gatchalian, sir. Now, if kung okay lang po sa inyo, may mga tanong po sa sir yung ating mga kagrupo, sir.
Sige po.
Okay.
I can answer questions.
Thank you, Senator. Unahin ko po si Doc June Bernardino, ang lead convener po ng Philippine Coalition on UNCRPD. Doc June,
Yes, DJ Ron.
please go ahead.
Salamat. So, maraming salamat, Senator, sa pangunguna niyo para maipasa yung batas. So, just to prepare everybody, kasi wala namang isang batas na sasagot lahat agad doon sa mga pangailangan. Although sa presentasyon at sa kaalaman ko, dahil sa involvement ko rin dito, malaki ang promise. Ang laki ng potensyal ng batas na to. Pero meron ho kaya kayong nakikita o napapansin na posibleng limitasyon ng batas na kakailanganin pa ng additional legislation? In second part to, sa implementation naman, may mga challenging part kaya na kailangan naming bantayan para masiguro na mai-implement ng maayos yung mga laman ng batas?
That's
po, salamat po.
It's a very good question, June. In fact, napakahalaga yung tanong na yan. Wala na ako nakikitang partner legislation for this dahil it's quite comprehensive. In fact, the stakeholders participated heavily in the crafting. Ang nakikita ko lang malaking hamon dyan ay yung budget. Because it's a 5-year rollout at ang ginawa natin mechanism dito magkaroon ng roadmap so that the roadmap will dictate how much amount of money do we need every year to efficiently and effectively roll out all the provisions of the law. So yun ang magiging challenge, no? Dahil by process hindi tayo naglalagay ng amount dahil para hindi naman natin alam kung ano yung magiging projections in the next few years. So ang ginagawa natin, we leave it to Congress to decide every budget season. So yung magiging challenge natin.
Aha. Wala ho bang pwedeng floor muna? Kahit floor, say 2% of the CEF fund or whatever. Hindi ho ba wise yung ganon, Senador?
Hindi namin ginawang ganon, no? Because we want certain flexibility, no, to the DBM and also to the implementor. So ang ginagawa, and not only this law, but many laws, is during the budget deliberation, we fight very hard to include the amounts that are needed to implement the law. So that's by process, ganun ang ginagawa natin.
Okay po. Thank you very much, Senator. Ms. Sheila.
Ronald, bago mag-move,
yes.
express ko lang din yung appreciation ng sektor sa pagbubukas ng Estado o ng gobyerno sa partisipasyon ng mga may kapansanan. Isa ho yan sa pinupush namin, importante o na prinsipyo, laman ng CRPD, participation ng mga may kapansanan sa lahat ng bagay na makakaapekto sa buhay namin. Ito, particular tayo sa edukasyon. So, panawagan no, sa iba natin mga mambabatas, mga opisyal ng gobyerno, na may mga pag-uusap tungkol sa mga Pilipino, sigurado maapektuhan kami dyan, facilitate ang pagsali ng mga may kapansanan sa pag-uusap na yan. Salamat po. Salamat, TJ Ronnie.
Thank you, Doc John. Sheila Agaraw. Ito po, Senador, ang champion namin sa gender issues. Sheila, go ahead.
Good afternoon po, Senator Gatchalian. Ako po si Sheila Agaraw, miyembro ng Nationwide Organization of Visually Impaired Empowered Ladies o Novel. Ang katanungan ko nga po ay sa nabanggit ni Sir Ronel ay tungkol sa gender. Paano po ma-ensure, Senator, na ang bill na to ay ma-address ang multiple discrimination and unique barriers na kinahaharap ng mga female learners with disabilities and other learners belonging to the marginalized genders?
To be honest about it, itong batas na ito did not emphasize on gender, Sheila, because there are other laws on gender and equality that focuses on gender. We want this law to pay a lot of attention to the needs of our learners with disabilities. So if you go through the law, there's no provision or special provision for gender inequality. Hindi ho namin dinigay yun because we want the law to focus on one thing, which is inclusive education. But I believe that there are other laws that can address gender inequality, and we've been there are very good laws that that are being used actually in our country to promote gender inequality. Yung GAD, ewan ko kung narinig
Yeah.
yung GAD. No?
Young God, meron yung 5% sa budget, sir.
Gender and development.
Oo.
Very effective yan. In fact, to be honest about it, when I was a mayor, yan yung isang program na ginagamit namin to promote women participation, promote women empowerment, and equality. So, but in this law, hindi natin linagay yan.
Tsaka siguro, Senador, pagka proper yung ating 5-year transition plan, nako, lahat ma-address na yan. Ano po, lalo yung mga concerns ng ating mga kababaihan.
Yeah, the 5-year plan naman is not limited to, let's say, just on inclusive education. That will be the primary focus.
Yeah.
But in terms of if there are requirements for gender and equality, then that can be included in the 5-year plan.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Senator. Jennifer Garcia, are you there? Please go ahead. Jennifer. Kung wala pa si Jennifer, Artlet Team, go ahead. Good afternoon. Si Artlet Team po, Senator from the Mabini Group. May Kapansanang Bayani Movement of Region 4A. Go ahead, Art.
Yes, salamat DJ Ronnie. Gandang hapon po, Senator. Artlet Team po from Mabini Movement po, Region 4A. At miyembro po tayo ng Philippine Coalition ng UNCRPD. Ang tanong ko po, meron po ba tayong provision or mekanismo sa IE Bill that encourages partnership of schools with local government units, Persons with Disability Affairs Office, community organizations of persons with disabilities, so that they can collaborate in promoting inclusive education of learners with disability and also inclusion in general, Senator?
Yeah, meron tayong whole of society approach in this bill, and that will basically signal that the different actors in our community should work together to achieve inclusive education and also an inclusive society. So meron tayong provision there for inclusive for whole of society approach, but of course this is in the context of inclusive education, no? Because that is the main topic of the bill.
Yes, dagdag ko rin po Senator. Meron po ba tayong sanctions para sa mga taong gobyerno o pribado sa mga hindi magko-comply po dito sa IE Bill, sa IE law?
Meron we put administrative sanctions. So DepEd can file administrative sanctions to government employees, for example, public schools who are not compliant. They can also investigate private schools who are not compliant, because the law is very clear that all educational institutions, private and public alike, should practice inclusive education.
Although, okay, so merong penalty provisions. Meron din po bang incentive, sir, do sa mga magko-comply naman?
Wala tayong incentives na linagay, no? Because
wala incentives. Parang carrot and stick daw yan.
The responsibility of everyone, ano? So we didn't deem it to put incentives because it's the responsibility of everyone.
Pero siguro kami po sa INET, baka makakaroon kami ng award na most compliant on inclusive siguro in our future activities. Baka papayag si Pangulong Flora na isa yan sa mga bigyan natin ng award para ma-motivate naman po yung, kasi 5 years plan, very critical ito na mga civil society tulad ng INET ay magbibigay ng ganitong award. Incidentally, andyan po si Ma'am Flora, meron din pong mensahe o tanong para sa inyo. Ma'am Flora, please, Professor.
Gandang hapon po muli, Senator Win. Thank you rin, DJ Ronil. Ang tanong ko po kay Senator Win, how will the IE bill ensure that key stakeholders like the learners, the parents, the teachers, families and organizations of persons with disabilities, and also advocates working with the disability sector are involved at all stages of policy development implementation and monitoring, especially in the significant changes this will bring to the general school system? Yan po yung unang tanong ko. May pangalawang tanong po, hindi ko alam kung pwede pang ihabol, Senator Win.
Please go ahead,
Yung
ma'am.
gender lens dun sa ating bill.
Mm-mm.
Gusto ko lang suportahan yung binanggit kanina ng ating kapatid na
Si
naglatag ng si Sheila.
Mm-mm.
Kung kaya pa pong ihabol yung gender lens dun sa kabuuan ng bill. Hindi naman yung ibig sabihin gender equality agad-agad, kundi yung pagtanaw lang sa usapin ng perspektiba ng gender sa lahat ng provision ng ating batas, lalo na sa school system. Tapos yung binabanggit naman po ni Senator DJ, ni Brother DJ, siguro pa baka pwedeng isa tong sa mga LGUs natin na mag-advocate talaga ng support for the learners with disabilities. Magandang ma-include ito dun sa kanilang seal of good housekeeping o kaya mga incentive para sa mga LGUs na nagsusupport ng ating advocacy sa learners with disabilities. Yun lang po, Senator Win.
The first question, Ma'am Flora, about policy. The concept of forming an advisory group came from the stakeholders themselves, and I agree with that. And the reason for that advisory council is for the advisory council to get involved in policy making, in strategies, as well as crafting the roadmap. Of course, advisory siya in nature, no? But the intention there is to make it more participative. So, in other words, hindi lang po si DepEd Secretary ang mag-decide, no, on his or her own volition, but it has to be a participative manner through the advisory council. Ngayon, on the gender, we'll try. No? I'll be honest, no, hindi na pag-usapan yung gender perspective in this bill. But I truly believe that there are sufficient laws that addresses the gender issues. And I'll see if we can still include it. No? Malaking usapin yung gender, but I'll analyze if we can still include it.
Okay, sir. Ano po, thank you, Ma'am Flora. Ito po, commercial lang po ito, medyo sidetrack, pero baka ho matutulungan nyo daw po ang mga bulag at senior citizens. Text lang po ito ni Lauro Porcil. Una po, dalawa ho yung kanyang concern. Pero pwede naman po, FYI muna, basta andyan naman po yung inyong staff. Number 1 po, sinasabi po ni Lauro na dyan daw po sa Bureau of Learning Resources sa DepEd, paubos na daw po ang mga gumagawa ng Braille books. From 25 employees, ngayon daw po tatatlo na lang ang mga empleyadong bulag sa Bureau of Learning Resources kasi raw po ang taas-taas ng qualification pero ang kanilang salary grade 6 at salary grade 7. Sino ba raw ho ang papasok sa ganoong kababang sweldo? At bakit daw po ganoon ang discrimination na nakukuha ng mga empleyado sa DepEd? Number 2 daw po, ito po, hindi na to DepEd, ito po, commercial na talaga to, Senador. Sinabi po ni Secretary Tugade ng Department of Transportation and Communication na yun daw ginagawang bagong Clark Airport magiging silent airport daw ho, sir. Ibig sabihin, titingin ka na laang sa screen. Nako, patay ho dyan ng mga logbo, sir. Wala ho kaming contact lens, hindi kami laging nakatingin at hindi makakatingin. So baka naman daw ho pwedeng matawag ang atensyon ni Secretary Tugade na wag ituloy ang ganitong pangungutya sa sektor ng mga bulag at sa mga senior citizens na malabo na po ang mata. Senator Gatchalian. Commercial lang po yun.
Ako, malabo na rin mata ko. But that's a very good point. No? I-raise ko ho yan kay Secretary Tugade. I don't think I think what Secretary Tugade is boasting is the fact that it's a high-tech airport and puro touchless or touchless and puro contactless na yung systems doon. But that's a very good point. In fact, dapat talagang erase yan kasi the whole world is going to that direction. Pero we have to be sensitive to the special needs of our persons with disabilities. So, i-erase ko yan.
Maraming salamat po.
Nakikita ko dyan, we should have assistants who can help our persons with disabilities, lalo na kung hindi sila nakakakita. Alam ko sa mga ibang airports, meron mga special assistants.
Opo, sir, I've been to Singapore Airport. I've been to New York International Airport at dito ho sa airport sa Brisbane at sa Sydney. Hindi naman ho ganoon. May mga announcement pa rin na maririnig mo. Oho.
Hindi naman, I think exaggeration na ho yung silence. Wala. Exaggeration na. Meron naman.
Talagang minsan exag si Togade.
Alam mo naman yung kasama sa politika ho yan.
Anyway, tsaka po yung number 1 daw. Baka totoo yung tatatlo na lang empleyado kaya baka walang braille box na napoproduce masyado, sir.
Titignan mo namin.
Okay. Sir, to continue po, our group, si Mr. Bong Garcia po, isa sa mga active parent po ito ng parents, families with children with disabilities. Siya po ay may anak na deaf-blind, sir. Parang si Helen Keller ng Pilipinas. Kuya Bong, magandang hapon.
Yeah. Magandang hapon ho, Senator Win. Ako ay isa sa mga sumali sa public hearing at technical working groups na pinatawag niyo. Medyo familiar ho ako sa mga iba-ibang provision na pumasok sa batas. At meron isang provision at sa akin tingin ay napakahalaga. Ito yung procedural safeguards. Kung pwede ho sana niyang ipaliwanag sa audience natin ngayon kung paano makakatulong yung provision na ito para sa mga batang may kapansanan na magkaroon ng karampatang edukasyon, tinatawag nating appropriate education, at paano matulungan ng kanilang mga magulang na ipaglaban ang mga karapatang pang-edukasyon ng kanilang mga anak. Marami ho kasi mga bata at mga magulang na kasali sa mga tinatawag nating marginalized sectors, pareho ng deaf-blind, na hindi nabibigyan ng pansin. At kung may problema, may pangangailangan, hindi nila alam kung saan pupunta, saan magtatanong, at saan dudulog ang kanilang mga reklamo o complaints. Salamat po, Senator Win.
Thank you, Kuya Bong, Senator.
I'm not mistaken, kayo, Mr. Bong, ang nag-introduce nitong procedural safeguards. No? My memory remembers it correctly. I think you and your wife, if I'm not mistaken.
Opo.
Kayo po nag-introduce nitong suggestion. To make it simple, ang DepEd ngayon mandated na to come up with procedures for redress or procedures kung meron pong may mga karapatan na linalabag o may mga procedures kung may mga items sa batas na hindi ini-implementa. So, bibigyan ko kayo konkretong example. For example, may batang hindi ho tinanggap sa isang eskwelahan. Yung bata yun or yung magulang, pwede na silang pumunta sa DepEd o sa kanilang division para magreklamo at mayroong mekanismo para imbestigahan. So ngayon hindi very clear yan. But in the law, in procedural safeguards, will now again mandate DepEd, maglabas kayo ng procedures. Pag mayroong mga reklamo, mayroong hindi nasusunod, mayroong mga bagay sa batas na hindi sinusundan, meron ng procedures para sundan at pag may magrereklamo, meron din procedures para maayos ma-aksyonan yung mga reklamo yun. So in a nutshell, in simple terms, yun po yung procedural safeguards provision.
Alright, Senador, ako rin po, by simple example din. Ako po ay nagreklamo sa DepEd ng anomaly sa Philippine National School for the Blind in 1983. Natapos po ang kaso ko 1995, ipinanak nga ho yung panganay na anak ko. So kung ganyan, sana po hindi na ganyan ang mangyayari sapagkat nakaka-disappoint magreklamo sa DepEd. Sobrang bagal nung araw. Hopefully itong ating batas na ito magbabago ng lahat. Senator, personal experience ko po yan, Senator Gatchalian, sir.
Yeah, itong procedural safeguards, minamandato na ang DepEd na maglabas ng mga procedures. No? Iba-ibang procedures, kasama na dyan yung pagrereklamo, kasama na dyan yung action na dapat gawin ng DepEd o ng eskwelahan, kasama na dyan yung mga procedures kung may linabag na provision sa batas.
Maraming salamat po, Senador. Konti na lang po ang mga kagrupo ko, pero please give them a chance. Ang susunod po, Your Honor, sir, ay isang one of the leading advocates ng education for children with disabilities at isa rin po sa mga katuwang ng inklusyon. Ang kanyang foundation ay ang Norfil Foundation. Siya po ang isa sa mga sila po ang isa sa tumutulong sa InkluNasyon. So, Ranil Sorongon, Ranil, your question please.
Magandang hapon at maraming salamat, no, Senador Win, no. Actually, Senador, dati akong Executive Director ng Autism Society Philippines for 11 years, no. Iba talaga, no, ang passion pag affected ang pamilya, no, na may kapansanan, no, tulad ni Senator Win, no. Senator, ito yung tanong ko, no. I'm sure alam mo rin na napakahalaga ang pagtutulungan ng pamilya at ng paaralan, no, para sa success ng isang batang may kapansanan. Okay, ano ang provision, no, ng IE Bill, no, para tiningnan yung partnership and teamwork ng pamilya at ng paaralan? At papaano, no, alam mo rin ito, papaano ma-ensure kaya ng bill, no, kasi kulang ang ating mga developmental pediatrician, ang ating mga physical therapist, ang ating occupational therapist, at ang ating mga speech therapist. Yun lang po. Maraming salamat, Senator Win.
Meron tayong ito tinatawag natin whole of society approach dahil talagang napakahalaga po ang partisipasyon po ng komunidad, ng mga magulang sa pagpapalaki at sa inclusive education. So meron tayong isang provision there na pinopromote yung whole of society approach. Hindi lang to trabaho ng DepEd, no? Kung hindi trabaho to ng bawat isa. At doon po sa yung mga professionals and specialists na nabanggit nyo, talagang aminado ho kami. Nung dinidebate ho namin to, aminado ho kami na napakahirap kumuha ng mga ekspertong yun. Kaya ho, gumawa ho tayo ng roadmap, no? Dahil inaamin namin na hindi kaagad makukuha yon. Kung kahit may pera ang gobyerno, napakahirap kumuha ng mga ganong specialista dahil kakaunti lang. So gumawa tayo ng roadmap. So yung roadmap ay identify po this first day, itong first year, ano pong mga kailangan nating specialista. Pupunduhan yun. Second year, third year, So ganun po ang gagawin ho natin under this law. So kung hindi man mabibigla na makakakuha ho tayo ng mga eksperto, by that roadmap, mapaproject na natin kung ano yung mga pangangailangan natin.
Maraming salamat, Senador.
Okay, maraming salamat po. Andiyan na ba si Jennifer Garcia? Jennifer? Jennifer 1? Jennifer 2? Thank you very much. Mamaya ulit, tawagin kita. Sana nandiyan ka na. Alright, sunod po, Senador, ay si Doc Irma Coronel. May mensahe po at konting clarification daw sa inyo. Doc Irma? Doc Irma? Okay, nawala din. Mukhang marami nalalaglag, Your Honor, sir. Gawa ng siguro maulan. Puntahan na po natin ang... Yes, Doc Irma, please.
Good afternoon, Senator Gatchalian. First of all, thank you very much for the support for the IE bills, and thank you for the support of your legal staff. Ang isang concern po ng mga parents is when they go to the specialist and when they have to go to need transportation and to have assistive devices, learning materials, where will they get their funds, individually, as a family? In the House version of the bill, Section 22, we have suggested the program support fund, which is not in the Senate version. So we would like to ask your opinion on this because we feel that there should be a fund wherein parents can draw the needed money for these expenses, which are very real expenses that they will need as their children go on schooling in an inclusive setting. Thank you very much.
But that's a good idea. In lieu of that special support fund, what we authorized and mandated are the barangays. So the barangays, through the barangay help desk,
Yung barangay patrol.
are now empowered, no,
Oo.
to assist learners with disabilities. So the fund is a good idea, but the funding of the fund might be an issue. For example, how much do we need to support all of those parents? And my fear there is we might set up the fund, but the sustainability of the fund might be an issue. So when we were debating this here in the Senate, what we figured is, let's empower the barangays. Like for example, in Valenzuela, we empower the barangays, and the barangays help assist families with special requirements. For example, yung mga sasakyan ng barangays, yung mga empleyado ng barangays, they help, and they do help. So that is the mechanism. So in lieu of a specific fund, what we did is we empowered the barangays. But we'll study po that proposal. Let me. I think the concept is the same, no? How to help families, how to assist families, but the approaches are different. I'll take a look at that po.
Thank you very much, Senator.
All right, thank you very much, Doc Irma. At o nga po, sir, kasi talagang meron pong extra cost pagka meron kang membro ng pamilyang may kapansanan. Siyempre, si nanay sa halip na pupunta sa trabaho, ihahatid muna si bulag sa school, di ho ba, Senador? Anyway, of course, sabi nyo nga, titingnan nyo po ito.
Challenging talaga.
Oho, titingnan nyo po ito, sir, at kami po nananalig naman na inyo pong makikita ito. At ipapaalala ko lang po ulit sa inyo po yung aking naulit sa inyo sa isa sa mga forum ng INET na ang DepEd po ay simula 2010 hanggang 2016 ay naglaan ng 600 million pesos. Pero ang tinatanong lang po namin, anong nangyari doon sa 600 million? Bakit backwards pa rin ang learning materials for learners with disabilities? Hanggang ngayon po walang libro ng public school sa mga deaf na ginagamit po nila. Ganon din po yung mga bulag. Kulang na kulang po sa audio at braille materials. 2017, 100 million. 2018, 100 million. 2021, 100 million. Pero naibigay daw po sa COVID. So, please take a look at that. Budget season na naman po ngayon, sir. Wala naman po kaming problema kung ibigay sa COVID, pero wag namang lalahatin. Kasi bago pa ho dumating yung pandemya, Mr. Senator, nako-COVID na po ang aming learners with disability. Anyways, maraming salamat, Senador. And meron na lang pong ilan, please, have some more time for us, please. Ang susunod po ay mga tanong galing po sa isang magulang uli at mga tanong po ng aming audience. Ma'am Celia Garcia, please.
Okay. Gandang hapon po, Senator.
Yes, Ma'am Celia. Good to see you.
Celia Garcia po. Matagal tayo nagkasama dun sa madugong technical working group meeting po natin.
Yes, I remember.
We are very grateful that we found you as our champion for the advocacy in inclusive education. Marami po tayo, nung nalaman po ng aming audience na kayo ang aming guest, ay inulan po kami ng maraming questions. Hindi po namin masasabi lahat ngayon dito, kaya ang ginawa po namin, ginroup na lang po namin yung similar. And one of the most questions pertain to their concern about the upskilling of teachers. Lalong-lalo na daw po tungkol doon sa technology dahil ngayon daw po sa ating panahon ay napakahigpit ng pangangailangan para sa online learning at sa accessibility ng learning materials for the learners with disabilities. Ano daw po, meron daw po bang provision sa ating IE bill tungkol dito?
Yeah. Meron tayo Ma'am Celia, but this is in the context of inclusive education.
Yes.
So twofold yan. No? The law now mandates CHED to make sure that courses are offered in line with inclusive education. So we all know that teachers are essential, and we have to make sure that we have graduates that come online or come in the service. So CHED will make sure that those courses are being offered. Now, when it comes to upskilling, I'm trying to remember in the law if there is upskilling, but there is continuous development for in-service.
Professional development po.
Yes.
Yes, no.
Correct. We didn't use the word
on-the-job training.
Yes, we didn't use the word upskilling per se, but the same concept, no, continuous development.
Pangalawang tanong po, noon pong nag-umpisa tayo ng inclusive education, mga late 1990s na po and early 2000, yung pong ating mga batang ipinasok noon, ngayon ay pag-graduate na, palabas na po sa school system. At ang concern po ng kanilang mga magulang ay paano ba makakahanap ng employment itong mga batang ito? Yun nga, mga batang walang kapansanan, ang hirap na hirap kumuha ng employment. So, ang very important pong provision ng ating batas ay about transition.
Yes.
Ito po ang isa sa mga tanong. How is the transition programming in the IE bill adaptable to the present conditions and also accessible to learners with disabilities, particularly the seniors in high school, given these challenging times?
The law recognizes the transition from school to work. And so we mandated TESDA, DepEd, and CHED to work together to make that transition operational. So the details will be in the program itself. No? But definitely the law authorizes and mandates CHED, DepEd, and TESDA to come up with a transition.
Sa akin po, Senador, importante ho yung K-12 lalo na yung senior high school. Kaya sabi ko nga sa kanila, galingan natin ang learning materials for learners with disabilities sa senior high school. Kasi yung K-12, hindi man masyado sa kinder, mahahabol pa yan hanggang grade 7. Pero itong senior high school, college na yung kasunod o trabaho na. So pag kasi po in the past years of the implementation of the senior high school po, napakahina ho ng mga learning materials na nakukuha ng mga bulag, lalo na po at saka mga deaf. So, very timely po talaga itong inyong ito, Senator Gatchalian po.
Dito sa isang provision under the Department of Labor and Employment, the DOLE shall develop a training program for learners with disabilities transition from school to work. So,
very good.
Aside from TESDA, it goes on to TESDA and others, DOLE itself will be mandated to develop training programs.
Especially siguro yung mga dual tech, yung 'di ba, yung mga on the job training sa private employers, no?
Yes, nakasulat din dito, TESDA shall provide technical and vocational training when necessary.
Right, very good, Senator. Ma'am Celia, question.
Pangatlong tanong po is mula po ito sa isang public school principal. Dahil kakaroon daw po sila ng maraming problema tungkol po sa bullying at disiplina na kanilang gagamitin doon din po sa airing learners with disabilities. Ito daw po ba ay na-address sa ating pagkasalukuyang IE bill?
So sorry, Ma'am Celia,
Ayun daw pong bullying na nangyayari bullying at saka yun daw pong discipline na pwedeng gamitin ng mga eskwela para po sa kanilang mga batang may kapansanan, sapagkat marami pong mga teachers at marami pong eskwelahan ang hindi po nila alam kung paano po didisiplinahin ng mga batang ito at karaniwan po ine-expel nila or nakakatanggap ng mga hindi karampatang parusa ang mga batang may kapansanan pag sila po ay nagkakaroon ng mga kamalian. Meron daw po bang provision sa ating IE about bullying and discipline for learners with disabilities?
No, not in this IE law, but we have a very comprehensive anti-bullying law. And itong bullying is affecting the whole education system. In fact, na-detect to ng PISA in the examination. So I plan to conduct an oversight on the implementation of this anti-bullying law. There are mechanisms there. Dapat to i-report sa principal, yung principal po papatawag. May mechanisms po sa batas, pero parang hindi ho ini-implement ng mahusay itong batas na ito. And we plan to conduct an oversight.
So not particularly in the IE bill, pero yung IE bill naman po, ang objective nito is to create an environment that is conducive to inclusive education and friendly relationships within the school and outside na po.
Tsaka siguro, Ma'am Celia, the fact, and then Senator, the fact that you are giving leeway dito sa advisory council at siguradong makakaroon ng local advisory council, ito'y mapapag-usapan ng mas matindi sa kanilang sitwasyon. Tama ho ba yun, Senator?
Yes, tama ho.
All right. Ma'am Celia, please.
Huli na po ito. Ito po ay galing sa Ating Computer Training Center for the Visually Impaired. Sila po ang leading trainers para po sa mga may kapansanan sa paningin at ibang mga may kapansanan. At doon din po sa mga ibang walang kapansanan. Meron daw po bang platform na open to the PWD, persons with disabilities, and especially for the more marginalized subsectors like the blind and the deaf, na pwede po sila makipag-dialogue with legislators like you and voice their needs in other forms of learning like online dialogues and discussions. Kasi yun daw po kanilang organisasyon, willing daw pong mag-facilitate at mag-fund ng mga ganitong dialogue. I was thinking siguro pwede ito sa ating advisory if ever, pero ngayon wala pa. Yun po ang kanilang tanong.
Di po, we're open. No? We continuously dialogue with different stakeholders to know what's happening on the ground, and especially mga best practices and new concepts. Ako personally, I sit into dialogue with them.
All right, Senator, before you continue, Ma'am Celia, si JM po, isa sa aming mahusay na technician. Siya po ay person with disability din po. At alam ko meron din ho siyang mensahe para sa inyo. JM, nakikinig si Senador Gatchalian. JM?
Good afternoon po, Sir Senator.
Sige, go ahead.
Yun lang po, yung sa services lang po talaga yung mga public vehicle. So far yun po yung nahihirapan kami dahil na din po yung mga pinagbabawal po na parang mga demand po ng mga public. So doon po kami nahihirapan sa transportation. Makakapag-provide po kaya ang government ng mga services na gano'n sa mga PWDs. Yun po,
ang ginawa namin ay sinama ho namin yung mga barangays dahil sa aking experience, malaki po ang magagawa ng barangays kung active in barangays. So we created what we call a barangay help desk. No? And this barangay help desk will be the point person on the ground for services, additional services. Dahil malaking bagay po yung magiging kilos ng barangay.
Hindi ko alam dyan sa inyo, sir, but dito sa amin sa Batangas, FYI lang, si Governor Mandanas ay nangutang ng 4 billion. Hindi ko alam kung in anticipation of his Mandanas Law. Part of that fund, ipinambili ko ng barangay patrol, pinamigay sa mga barangay, 1,078 barangay so kami dito. Kaya tama yun, JM, si Senador, may batas ngayon at sabi niya, yung barangay help desk at dapat yung mga barangay patrol na yung gamitin. Isa sa paggagamitan dapat ay para sa mga learners with disabilities. Ma'am Celia?
Yun lang po. Wala na pong mga iba pang mga tanong.
Okay, ma'am.
Salamat lang po kami.
Teka muna, baka may...
Senator Gatchalian at kayo po ay talagang hulog ng langit sa amin. Nakakuha po talaga kami ng very good champion for our inclusive education at sa mga para sa kapakanan ng mga taong may kapansanan. Salamat po.
So Ma'am Celia, natawag naman natin lahat, ano?
Yes.
Okay, nako Ma'am, Sir, Senador, bago po kayo magbigay ng inyong mensahe, ay ipaparating ko po kay Senator Alfrecto kasi hindi niyo po na itatanong. Ako po ay pinagbigyan ng pagkakataon ng mga recto para maging isang government employee sa Batangas. Ako po ngayon ng Housing and Homesite Affairs Division sa probinsya. And I started with Mayor Vilma Santos Recto. Dinala po ako sa Batangas. Ngayon po ay Housing and Homesite Affairs Officer nila. At pangalawang bulag po na nakukuha ng seso, sir. So, and that's because of the opportunity given by Senator Recto, and because of your bill. Alam ko po, marami hong gaya ko, gaya ng mga kasama ko dito na mabibigyan ng pagkakataon dahil binuksan nyo po ang pintuan ng karunungan, sir. At ito po ang magdadala ng maraming oportunidad sa mga mas matatalino pa ho sa akin ng mga taong may kapansanan. Kaya Senador, ang pamanaho ninyo sa sektor ay mamalakihin ng utang na loob ng mga magulang at ng namin at siyempre kami pong mga Pilipinong may kapansanan. Salamat po sa paglalagay ng aming karapatan hindi lang sa papel kundi sa susunod na 5 taon ay sa katotohanan. Ano po? So Mr. Senator, your message to our sector, please go ahead, sir.
Well, una, si Senator Recto ay isa sa pinakamagaling, masasabi ko, with all sincerity and sureness, no, na isa sa pinakamagaling nating senador, at papasalamat ako sa suporta niya dito sa batas na ito. Bumoto siya kasama natin para isabatas itong inclusive education bill natin. Magaling yun, napakagaling. Marami akong bagay na kinukonsulta sa kanya halos every week, no? At itong batas natin, hindi po to produkto ng Senado, kundi produkto po ng mga stakeholders, kayo lahat, no? Si Ma'am Celia, ang kanyang asawa, mga members of the academy like UP, PNU, lahat ng mga iba't ibang grupo. Meron akong listahan dito, no? For example po, yung grupo po ni Miss President Carol Dagani, Philippine Federation of the Deaf, of course the Deafblind Support Philippines. Ilan lang po ito sa mga grupo na nagbigay ng oras at panahon para mabuo itong batas na ito. So ako, isang ano lang po ako, kumbaga isang pastol, no? Pero yung totoong gumalaw, no? Para mabuo itong batas na ito, kayo lahat po ang gumawa nito. At aminin ko, maraming konsepto dito galing po sa inyo. At itong mga konseptong to ay napakaganda dahil alam niyo yung nangyayari. Alam niyo kung ano yung nararamdaman, ano yung nagiging problema o nagiging issue ng ating mga mag-aaral na may kapansanan. At tumulong kayo para mabuo itong batas na ito at para mabigyan po ng pagkakataon lahat ng bata, no? Kahit ano man ang estado mo o ano mo ang ano mo estado, ano mo ang kondisyon mo sa buhay, lahat ng bata dapat makakuha ng de-kalidad na edukasyon. Kaya ako ang magpapasalamat sa inyo. No, maraming salamat sa INET at sa lahat ng ating stakeholders sa inyong tulong para mabuo itong inclusive education law natin.
Hello po, Senator. Baka ho pwedeng maging kumbaga, I just would like to satisfy my journalist curiosity. Konti lang ho. Medyo sidetrack, sir. Ngayon pong nag-declare na si Ping Lacson at si Tito Soto as President and Vice President. Kayo ho ba'y tuloy pa rin sa 2022, Senador?
Tuloy ho tayo. Tuloy ho tayo. Of course, nakasalalay yan sa inyong mga kamay kung iboboto
opo.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Tayo tuloy po at I'm very happy and I'm very proud to serve our country. At tutuwa po ako na may mga katulad ho ninyo na pinapagaan po yung aming buhay at very passionate. Yung passion, iba yun eh. Nakakahawa eh. Yung passion to serve also nakita ko sa inyo at yun po yung naging driving force ko para tuloy-tuloy na mabuo itong batas na ito.
Oo. This time naman po, sir, please tell us what we can do to make your campaign more successful and light also on your part. Kami naman po ang magbabalik ng compliment kung mamarapatin ninyo. Use us in the 2022 election para win na win tayong lahat, Senador.
Thank you. Maraming salamat dyan sa napakagandang intention.
Thank you po, Senador. At tulad po na sinasabi ni Senador kanina na po, at bago po umalis si Senador, magkakaroon po tayo ng konting picture taking. Pero bago po yon, Senador, sinasabi nga po nila na ang edukasyon ang isang pamana na hindi pwedeng kunin ng kahit sino. At yan po ang ibinigay ngayon ng ating Senador Win Gatchalian sa pamamagitan ng isang makatotohanan na papanahong batas. Kaya tayo pong mga may kapansanan, mga magulang naming may kapansanan, mga magulang ng mga batang may kapansanan, wala na po tayong dahilan para hindi natin pag-aralin ang ating mga anak. Kung ipinangungutang po ninyo ang inyong anak na walang kapansanan, mas ipangutang po ninyo ang anak nyong may kapansanan kasi meron na tayong batas na galing kay Senator Gatchalian at may mga senador at congressman na tumutulong. Kaya tulungan po natin ang ating sarili para tulungan din tayo ng lipunan. Ito po ang, at ano ba ang aabangan natin muna? Karanil, ano nga aabangan natin sa susunod na linggo?
DJ Ron, maraming salamat, no? Maraming salamat sa ating espesyal na panauhin, si Senator Win Gatchalian. Kay mga ka-InkluNasyon, ang susunod natin na Miyerkules ay isang sorpresa na episode. So maghanap tayo na ipakilala sa ating mga ka-InkluNasyon. Surprise, DJ Ron. Pero itutuloy natin ang ating selebrasyon ng National Disability Prevention and Rehabilitation Week sa susunod na Miyerkules. Kaya sabayan nyo kami para inyong matunghayan ang aming espesyal na panauhin sa susunod na Miyerkules. Maraming salamat at magandang hapon.
All right, Kisha.
Magandang hapon po. Isang karangalan po para sa amin na makasama ka ngayong hapon, Senator Win Gatchalian. Maraming salamat po at naway patuloy po ang inyong atikain sa edukasyon, lalo na sa ating mga students with special needs. Muli maraming salamat po. Maraming salamat din po sa Office of the Senator, UNCRPD, PNASLI, TERCAP Services, Seesaw Channel, Norfil, at Philippine Federation of the Deaf. Maraming salamat din po sa InkluNasyon Core Group na nakasama natin today. Thank you din po sa ating mga sponsors at iba't ibang Facebook pages na patuloy na naka-cross-post sa atin. At ang ating avid viewers na patuloy na tumututok sa ating programa, maraming salamat po. Patuloy lang po ang inyong pagtutok sa ating programa tuwing Miyerkules ng hapon sa InkluNasyon, Inklusyon, now na!